Hello everyone. My name is Manohar. I'm a data science trainer and consultant. Today I'm going to tell you about the statistics part which are needed for the data science. Let me tell you agenda for the session. In this session I will explain what is a statistics. After that I will tell you two popular key terms. They are the population and sample. I will explain those as well. After that I will explain about central limit theorem, variance, standard deviation, Pearson correlation, and Gaussian distribution. Now, let me explain about data. Everybody knows about the data and the importance of the data also they know, right? Without data, we can't do any kind of thing. Without data, we can't communicate with our friend. Without data, we can't predict the future. Without data, at least we can't get the job, right? So data is everywhere. Data is very important to us. Let me tell you what is the data. Data is collection of facts, numbers, quantities, information, graphs, measurements, and observations. Simply say the data means information. What I'm passing to you, the information. Right. Now let me move forward and let me tell you what is a statistics. Statistics is the area of applied mathematics which is concerned with the data collection, interpretation, and representation of the data into the graphical format. We use this statistics to represent the data into the graphical format. Not only to represent the data into the graphical format, we use these statistics to solve the complex problems as well. Right. Say suppose, let me tell you one example. I have conducted the population survey. I have gathered the data from each and every people and I store that data into the spreadsheets. And if I submit that data to the government, then is government is able to understand about the data? No, government can't understand the data because of nobody can't analyze the data within a less time just by looking into the spreadsheets. If you submit the data by converting the data into the graphical format, they can understand, yes, in this area the population is like this. In this area the population is like this. When I compare the population with this year, the population is increased. They will understand that data like that and they can analyze the data like that, right? Whenever you feed the data to the statistical functions, these statistical functions convert the data into the graphical format. From that graphs we will get the information. From that information we will get the knowledge, right? Here when the government can understand about the population in this area, the population is high and all, then they can take the decisions. In this area the population is very high, we need to change some kind of rules in that city. They will check the decisions like that. See, just by using this statistics and all, the population is keep on, we are able to find how the population is increasing, how the population is decreasing. Just by using these statistics, the government can be able to change the rules in the society. Just by using the statistics, we can able to take the decisions on the society. See how the data is important to us, right? I hope you understand about the data and the statistics. Now let me move forward and let me tell you the terminology in statistics. Whenever you attend for any kind of interview, if the interviewer will ask you the questions related to the statistics, like what is a population and what is sample, then that time if you are unable to answer the question to the interviewer, then that time simply they will understand he don't know about the statistics. Simply they will send you to the home, right? Because of without the population and without the sampling, there is no statistics. These two terms are very popular in the statistics. Let me tell you what is a population and what is a sample. Population is combination of the samples. Group of samples is called the population. Come to the sample. Sample is a subset in the population. Right. To understand this population and sampling, let me tell you one best example. Say suppose a country. Country is a combination of states. Right. Here a group of states is called a country. How we are able to call a group of states as a country? In the same way we are able to call the group of samples as a population. And if you pick one specific state from the country, then we call that as a sample. Right. To understand clearly, let me tell you one more example. Just looking into the example, here in this example, you can observe there is a target population and sample. If you assume this target population as your city, in that time, in that city, there are some peoples might be there. Right. In that city, if you are going to construct any kind of house, then that time, will you recruit all the people to construct your house? No, you won't recruit all the people. You will recruit the people who knows the work, who will show the interest to do that work. You will recruit those people only. Whenever you recruit only few of the people from your city, then we call those people as our samples. Right. This sample is taken from this population. Group of these samples is called the population. Let me move forward and let me tell you about the central limit theorem. Here the central limit theorem says that the mean of the samples may or may not be equal to the population. Mean of the population. To understand this central limit theorem and all, let me tell you one best example. Say suppose a garden owner want to sell that garden to the another person. One person came to the garden and for the land, the garden decided some amount. But in the garden there are some trees. The person is going to pay for each and every tree. Now the person wants to know how many fruits are there approximately for each and every tree. The upcoming owner wants to know. Then that time the garden can't go to each and every tree and he can't find and he can't count how many fruits are there for each and every tree. So that is the reason we will take some samples and we will make that as a subset. Here I have taken 4 subset. In the each and every subset I have taken 7 samples. Equally 7 samples are there. In this subset, see 7 samples are there. In this subset, 7 samples are there. In this subset, 7 samples are there. In this subset also 7 samples are there. Make number of subsets by selecting the random samples. In each and every subset, place equal number of samples. And now take the mean for each and every subset. Take the mean for this subset and this subset and this subset and this one as well. Take the mean for each and every subset. And whatever the mean you will get, with that means calculate total subset means. Whatever the mean you will get, if you compare that mean with each and every sample, mean, then that mean approximately equal to the each and every sample mean. Right. Let me show you practically about this central limit theorem in the Jupyter notebook. Let me open the Jupyter notebook. Before going to discuss about the central limit theorem and all, let me tell you about how to calculate the mean, median and mode. Right. Here I import the pandas by using this import keyword. I have taken a alias name for that as PD. From that pandas library, I am taking the read CSV function. I am passing a file path through this read CSV function. I am storing the entire data into the df variable name. Right, now let me execute it and let me show you. Yes, whenever you find the star mark within these square brackets, that means that is still executing. Whenever you find the number within these square brackets, then we can confirm that is executed successfully. Right, see, now the data set is executed. Now in this data, unnamed, department, region, education, gender, recruit channel, number of trainings, there are some number of columns are there. Right, now from the entire data I'm just taking top 20 samples. I'm taking the first 20 samples I'm going to take. I'm going to store that into the df variable name itself. Let me execute this one and let me show you the data frame now. Yes, with the 20 samples, the data frame is there. Here 19 samples are observed, you can observe, but the indexing start from 0. So along with the 0, totally 20 samples are there. I have taken 20 samples from the data set. I make that data as a separate data set, right? Now if you want to know how many columns are there and what are the columns are there, then we use this df and columns. In which variable name you have stored your data, you need to use that variable name. Here I stored my data set into the df variable name, and after that I use the columns. Let me execute this one. Yes, here unnamed, department, region, education, gender, whatever the column names are there in that data set, all the column names will be displayed here, right? Now let me just focus on the age column, right? Age column I'm focusing. I'm going to calculate the mean for the age. Let me show you the samples in the age column. Let me execute this one. Yes, these are the samples: 35, 30, 34, 39, 45, 31, and all these are the samples. Now I'm going to calculate the mean for that age column, right? So here I call that age column and I use the mean function. With that we will get the mean. Let me execute this one. See, I'm getting the mean as 35.4, right? If you want to calculate the mean, you need to use the mean function. Now come to the median. If you want to calculate the median, then use the median function by calling that column name from that data frame, right? Here I'm using the median function, and now let me execute this one. See here, the median is 34.5 and the mean is 35.4. Now come to calculate the mode. Yes, here I'm using the mode function to calculate the mode by calling that age column from the data set. Now let me execute this one and let me show you. Yes, here 34 is repeated number of times and 37 also repeated number of times. Mode will give you the results as which element is highly repeated, that element only is our mode. Here 34 and 37 are highly repeated. Which one you want to use as a mean, you can utilize that value as a mean. That is your wish, based on your requirement and based on your opinion on that moment. You can use either the value. Either you can use the 34, either you can use the 37, right? Now come to the central limit theorem. Here I'm going to generate the random samples from 1 to 100. 100 samples I'm going to take. I'm going to generate the samples from 1 to 100, right? So I imported the random module and I'm going to generate the random number from 1 to 100. Random dot randint of 1, 100 I specified. From 1 to 100 I'm going to generate a random number. This process I'm going to repeat till to the 100 times. I want 100 samples, 100 random samples I want. So that is the reason I'm going to iterate this process till to the 100 times, and whatever the value is generated, I'm going to append that value to this random vals list. Let me execute this one and let me show you the random vals. Let me print this random vals. Yes, these are the random values which are generated randomly: 15, 16, 94, 91, 56, 20, 87. These are the values are randomly generated from 1 to 100. 100 times this process is repeated. So that is the reason 100 samples are generated from 1 to 100 randomly. Now we need to take the samples from this entire population randomly, and we need to take the samples equally in each and every subset. Here I created empty list and I stored that into the subset 1. I'm going to take the 4 subsets: subset 1, subset 2, subset 3 and subset 4. Here I have taken empty list. I stored that empty list into that subset 1 variable name. Now I'm going to take the samples from this entire population equally. So I decided to take the 10 samples in each and every subset, right? So in the random vals variable name has stored our random values. See, in this random vals only we have stored our data. 10 variable names, 10 samples I'm going to take, and I'm going to append those 10 samples to this subset 1. In the same way, I'm going to take the 10 samples from the population randomly, and I'm going to append those samples to the subset 2. And I've taken one more subset, that is 3. I'm going to append the values to this subset 3. And the same way for the subset 4 as well, I have appended the values. Randomly I have taken 10 samples. Right. In each and every subset, 10 samples are there. Right. Now we need to calculate the mean for each and every subset. To calculate the mean, we will take the summation of all the values and we need to divide that value with the number of samples. So I have taken the length and I have taken the summation function as well. With that, the mean will be calculated, and whatever the results we will get, I am going to store that results into the subset mean 1. And in the same way, I am going to calculate the mean for the subset 2 as well. I am going to store that mean into the subset mean 2. And I am going to calculate the mean for the third subset. I am going to store that mean into the subset mean 3. In the same way, for the subset 4 as well, I am going to store that mean into the subset mean 4. Let me show you how the mean values came to us. Let me execute this one. Name error. Sorry, I haven't executed this one. Let me execute this one. Yes. See, the first sample mean is 52.9 and second sample mean is 56.3. Right. In the third sample mean is 36.2 and fourth sample mean is 64.3. Now we need to calculate the total subset means. Right. So I have taken all these means and I divided that with the 4 subsets, and I am going to store that mean into this total subset mean. Let me execute this one and let me show you total subset mean. The total subset mean is 52.425, and whatever the mean you get, you need to compare that mean with each and every sample. See here, when you compare this total subset mean with the first sample, approximately they are equal, and if you compare with the second one, that one also approximately equal, and with the third one and fourth one, they are not equal, not approximately equal, right? So finally we can confirm that for each and every tree there are 52 fruits are there, right? If you are still getting any kind of confusion, take the total sample mean. Here I am taking all the random values and I am going to calculate the mean. I am going to store that mean into the population mean. Let me execute this one and let me show you the values. See, total population mean is 51.58, right? See, if you compare this mean with our total subset mean, approximately they are equal, right? So that is the reason this central limit theorem will be useful for us, and it will tell you how many fruits are there randomly for each and every tree, right? Approximately it will tell you. This is all about the central limit theorem. Now let me open the slides and let me move forward. Now let me explain about the variance. Variance will give you the results as how the values are spreaded from the mean. To understand this, let me tell you one example. Say suppose I get the project to predict the price of the car. They has given some kind of actual values. Say suppose the Toyota car price is a 5 lakhs and Maruti car price is a 2 lakhs and Bolero car price is a 10 lakhs. Right. With that data, I am going to predict the new values. When I predict the data for that, the predicted values may be high when I compare with the actual values, and might be low and might be equal to the actual values, right? But I need to compare how the model is performed. To compare that, we need to take the difference. To compare each and every sample, that is very hard because in a real time, number of samples might be there. To compare each and every sample, that is very difficult, and that is time-based process, right? So that is the reason we are focusing on the variance. We will take the difference between the actual values and predicted values. Whatever the data we will get, with that data we are going to calculate the variance. To calculate the variance, we use this formula. Variance can be indicated by using this sigma square. Just take the mean of all the samples and subtract the mean from each and every sample and take the square of that and take the summation, and whatever the results you will get, divide that results with a number of samples. Then you will get the variance. By using the variance, we can tell how the model is performed. Let me tell you one best example to understand this example. Consider the SSC student. How the SSC student is performed in his education. To know that, we consider his percentage. How much percentage he got, either 97 percentage or 80 percentage or 75 percentage. We just focus on the percentage, but we don't focus on the subject. In social, how many marks he got, in mathematics, how many marks he got, in English, how many marks he got. Nobody will see. Just they will see the percentage. Based on that percentage, we can tell how the student is performing in his education. Right? How we are able to tell the student's performance but just by using the percentage of him. In the same way, we will see the variance to tell how the model is performed. Right. I hope you understand about the variance. Now let me move forward and let me tell you about the standard deviation. Here, standard deviation is the square root of the variance. This standard deviation can be indicated with a sigma later. Right, here you can observe the variance is indicated with a sigma square. When you send the square to this right side, then that will become as a square root. Then we call that as a standard deviation. Right. Now, to understand the standard deviation and all, let me tell you one example. By using the variance, we will get higher values. With that higher values, that is bit difficult to understand how the model is performed. So that is the reason standard deviation came into the picture. Now here, let me tell you one example. Say suppose a teacher is there in the class. Teacher wants to know how the students are performed in the exam. When I compared with the one student marks with the other student marks, whether those students are performed equally or not, just I want to confirm. Right. To confirm that, the teacher conducted an exam. In that exam, teacher got some kind of scores of each and every student. To compare each and every student with each and every student, that is bit difficult. That will take more time, right? So that is the reason we focus on this standard deviation. These are the marks: 76, 80, 82, 91, 84, 98. These are the marks. So according to our formula, first we need to take the mean. So I have calculated the mean for all of these student score. That mean is 88.57, and after that we need to subtract the mean from each and every sample. So I subtracted the mean from each and every sample. 76 minus 88.57, I got this value. In the same way, I did the same process for all the samples, and after that I squared that results, and whatever the results we are getting, by subtracting the values, we need to square that values, right? Minus 12.57, I square that, I got this value, 158.04. And in the same way, I applied the thing for remaining things as well, right? And if I take the summation and if I divide that value with the number of samples, I will get the variance. I got this variance, 47.53, I got the variance. From this variance, I am unable to find how the model is performed. How the students are performed, I am unable to find. So that is the reason I am going to apply the square root on that. Square root on variance I am going to apply. So I got this value, 6.89. This value is our standard deviation. By using this standard deviation, we can confirm how the students are performed. If you consider this standard deviation out of 10, the standard deviation is 6.89. Out of 10, 6.89 means the students are not performed well. Students are not performed equally. Just by looking into the student marks and all, the lowest marks is 76 and highest marks is 79. See, when I compare the student marks with this student, those students are not performed equally. The teacher can confirm like this just by looking into the standard deviation. Right. I hope you understand about the standard deviation and all. Now let me move forward. Okay. Before going to discuss about the covariance and correlation, let me tell you the way how to calculate the variance and standard deviation by using our Python. Yes. To calculate the variance and the standard deviation, we use this var function and standard deviation function. Right. Let me execute these two things. Here the variance is 25.93 and the standard deviation is 5.09. Simply you can calculate them by using this var function and std function. Now come to our slides and let me explain about the covariance and the correlation. Come to the covariance. Covariance will tell you what is the relationship between the two variables. Say suppose I have taken the height on the x-axis, I have taken the weight on y-axis. If the height is increasing, how the weight is deviating, I want to know. What kind of correlation is there between the height and weight? To find that, we use the covariance. Either positive correlation, either negative correlation, either zero correlation. What kind of correlation is there? To find that, we use this covariance. Right. If the height is keep on increasing and weight also keep on increasing, we can confirm that there is a positive correlation. If the height is increasing and weight is decreasing, then we can confirm that there is a negative correlation. Right. And if we find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is no correlation. Right. To find what kind of correlation is there between the variables, we use this covariance. Now come to the correlation. Correlation will tell you how strong the relationship is there between the two variables. Right. Here, whenever you find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is a perfect positive correlation is there. The correlation is 1, that means 100% that there is a correlation. Right. This correlation can be indicated by using the character or. And whenever you find the data points like this, whenever you plotted the data points like this, then we can confirm that highly positive correlation is there. That correlation is 0.8. And whenever you find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is a low positive correlation. That correlation is 0.3. And whenever you find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is no correlation. That correlation is 0. And whenever you find the data points like this, we can confirm that there is a low negative correlation. That negative correlation will be indicated with a minus symbol. Minus 0.3 indicated that negative correlation. And whenever you find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is a highly negative correlation is there. That negative correlation is minus 0.8. And whenever you find the data points like this, then we can confirm that there is a perfect negative correlation is there. That perfect negative correlation is minus 1. Here you can observe. Let me show you about the covariance and correlation practically in the Jupyter Notebook. Let me open the Jupyter Notebook. Yes. Here I have imported the NumPy library to find the covariance between the age and the average training score. I want to know what kind of correlation is there, either the positive correlation, either negative correlation, either there is no correlation. How it is, I want to know. So that is the reason I am going to calculate the covariance, np.co, and I am going to calculate the correlation between this age and average training score. Let me execute this one. See, I am getting these values, 25.93 minus 10.92, like this. If you are unable to get the information from this, then use another method. Just use the data frame and place the co function, and let me execute it. See, between the age to age, there is a positive correlation. Between the age to average training score, we can confirm that there is a negative correlation is there. Right. Now come to the correlation. Let me show you how strong the relation is there between age and average training score. Right. So let me execute this one. To calculate the correlation, we use this core function by the data frame. Let me execute this one. See, between the age to age, the correlation is 1. That means there is a strong correlation. And between the age to the average training score, there is a negative correlation, that is low negative correlation. Minus 0.1 is the correlation between the age and average training score. Now if you want to see the correlation between all of the variables in your data set, then we use this core function by the data frame. And If you want to represent the data frame, if you want to represent the correlation with the colors based on the correlation value, then we use the heat map. If the correlation is 0.8, that indicate with a different color. If the correlation is 0.7, that indicated with a different color. Let me execute this one and let me show you. Yes, it will execute, and in between let me explain one more concept. Let me explain about the distribution. Distribution in a statistics is a function that will shows the possible outcomes for an experiment. To understand this, let me tell you about the Gaussian distribution and along with the example. Say suppose I have started a company. In that company I have imported some of the machines, right? So the machine manufacturer is telling that you can utilize that machine till to the 3500 hours. But if I utilize that machine till to the 3500 hours, company may lose the profit. Every company look for profit, na? So now the company owner decided that we need to utilize that machine to the number of hours more than 3500 hours. If I utilize that machine till to the 4500 hours, I want to know how much percentage it will be survived, how much percentage it will be failing. I want to know the probability. So I am taking the mean and I am taking the standard deviation. I already told you how to calculate the standard deviation and all. Right. So I'm going to calculate the Z score for that. So I'm subtracting this mean from this sample and I'm going to divide that value with the standard deviation. I got the Z value as a 2. Now we need to check for the probability value in the G sheet. In the left side you can observe there is a G sheet. In the G sheet there are 2.0 and 0.0 is there. We got that Z value as a 2. There is no decimal value, so that is the reason we are focusing on 0.0. Right. This highlighted area is our failure probability. Right. 0.9772 is our failure rate. That means 97.72% the machine will be failed if we utilize that machine till to the 4500 hours, and only 2.28% probability is there that machine will be survived. Right. But the company owner will check at 3600 hours. If I utilize that machine till to the 3600 hours, if I utilize that machine till to the 3700 hours, 800 hours, 900 hours and 4000 hours, and they will check at different values. Just for an experiment, this Gaussian distribution will give you different kind of values. This Gaussian distribution will be indicated with bell curve. Right. This is all about the Gaussian distribution. Now let me open the Jupyter notebook. Yes. Here, let me explain about the heat map. This heat map will give you the results based on the correlation value. If the correlation is minus 0.27, that color is indicated with a different color, with a different color, that is indicating. If the correlation is 0.41, that color is different. If the correlation is very high, that color is different. If there is no correlation, then fully white color will come. You can observe there is a horizontally there is a white color. You can observe that, right? So whenever you find the fully white color without any kind of value, you can confirm that there is no correlation between the two variables, right? In this way, this heat map will give you the results, right? Let me open our slides and let me just recap the session, what we discussed in this session. I told you what is a statistics and population and sample, central limit theorem, variance, standard deviation, Pearson correlation, and Gaussian distribution as well. I explained all of this concept in this session. Yes, this is all about the session, guys. Thank you for spending your precious time with me. I would like to meet you all once again in my next webinar with a lot of interesting facts and information for your career. Thank you.